quite interesting that we look at Henry Kissinger, one of these men that worked for the United States, worked along the UN, and he makes this great quote. As I said, I don't know how to use the technology, so I can't really slip in the quote. He makes this quote that they must vaccinate the people. I'm just going to wing it. Vaccinate the people and they'll get the herd. And once they get the herd, they'll give their children everything and they'll control everything. Now, he was part of Agenda 21, and obviously he's a part of Agenda 30. We come down to 2022, and we see that the companies like Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson Johnson, AstraZeneca were really just IG Farben, Bay, who were the same companies under Hitler that were doing the gas. Now, the money trail points back to the same people. Now, Kissinger, he talks about depopulation. Obviously, he wanted to depopulate the whole of Africa, sterilize them. That's what the UN was set up for, a depopulation game. But the thing is that as a church, the sad thing is, as we look within the Adventist church, and don't get me wrong, I believe there are some Obadiahs there that are hiding the 50 prophets and the 50 priests or whatever, and there are some good men out there within Adventism. I do believe that. I don't believe that, it's just nobody out there talking. There's in different sectors of the world people that are talking. Anyway, within Adventism, from leadership, and we're talking from the GC coming down, they have basically sided with the governments of this world. You jump onto the GC site, as I've said before, you jump on the BUC site, I don't know about SEC site, you jump on these sites and they're telling you straight that you're on your own. We're not giving an exemption. I've seen some footage of one of the Adventist leaders. He's actually telling the people, you ain't getting no free rides, so don't come to us to get an exemption, you're not getting it. But yet, the people who we gave the hospitals to, 70% of the hospitals, which is the Roman Catholic Church, they're actually giving out exemptions. Now, I'm going to say this on the exemptions. Number one, you should be crying out to your church. You're a nurse, you're a doctor, you don't want to get vaccinated by these killer shots. And obviously, they use the advocate message and advocate way of doing vaccines, these kind of gene therapy vaccines, or they're not really vaccines, they're just gene therapy, is that in the batch, there may be 15, 25 kilo shots, some that maim you and some that are okay. So obviously you have a bunch of people, 85% of the people said, look, the shot didn't do nothing to me. And they're saying the shot is good. But these companies have actually deliberately done these, and some people are getting sterilized. So obviously, you take a shot, you want to have a baby, the chances of you having a baby are so slim, especially if you're a young person and you want to have children. You may not be able to have children because this thing is all planned out. And especially if you're black, because obviously they understand the DNA of the black man. It was like my friend explained to me about, he had a girlfriend that lived in, I think it was Croatia, and they used to drop sweets. The men were hungry, and the women ate the sweets, but when the men ate the sweets, they died. Those sweets that they put out, they understood DNA of what men had in them. So the important thing for us, and this is going to be very brief, the important thing for us is everybody loves their children. We all love our children, and they seem to be our prize. So I will say this to you, as the governments around the world are putting out that children can be vaccinated without no consent, they can't vote, they can't have sex, they can't do all kinds of stuff, but yet they can consent to have a vaccine. Now, what is the reason behind that? The simple reason behind the vaccine and the children having the vaccines is that these companies, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Johnson Johnson, these very companies who you check them out before 2019, they're in a lot of lawsuits. A lot of lawsuits, and Pfizer was down in Africa and they were using blacks where they could not do it in America, like they couldn't trial certain things on people in America. So they tried it on Africans in Nigeria. They went to court for it. There's loads of other court cases. And as I said in another video, Johnson Johnson, they were known to target black Americans in America. And when they got found out about the talcum powder and the creams, they sent it to Africa. And it's not just Africa, as I said before. It's India, it's Philippines, but mainly Africans they were sent to. So why they want to vaccinate the children? They want to vaccinate the children for the simple reason that the children gives them autonomy. They cannot be taken to court right now. After the trial period finishes and they started vaccinating people, you can take them to court if you're maimed or if somebody dies. But once it becomes a childhood vaccine, and remember this, once it becomes a childhood vaccine, like the mumps, rubella, anything happens to you, and even as an adult you take this MNR gene therapy, no court case. So this is why they're pushing and killing the kids, and there's loads of kids that are dying. You're just not coming up on the media, up on the regular media, because obviously these same companies, they basically, you look at the ads, Fox, CNN, Pfizer is powering it. So how can they talk? The doctors that we go to, these companies are paying the ways and writing the books for the doctors. So this is why years ago, God never wanted us to get involved with the pharmaceuticals. And obviously the pharmaceutical companies, we look at Revelation 18, it says about the merchantmen. We understand who the merchantmen are. Obviously, it's companies like BlackRock, Vanguard, British Royal Family, etc., 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 etc. We're not going to get into that, but these men, they own these companies, pharmaceutical companies, and the Bible tells us that they will use sorcery. Remember, there's different levels of sorcery, but the main sorcery that Revelation 13 gives us, that the whole world will be deceived, is by that sorcery. And the whole world, the church, they are being deceived. They are not standing up for anybody and saying anything. The biggest clangor out there will be the climate bill. And as I said in another video, that you check out who funded the climate control research. Rockefeller. Who's been pushing it? These great men, the merchantmen, they've been pushing the climate control, which comes into the climate bill. They're the ones putting out there all the things about the sea and this. And I just can't wait to get to understand how to use the technology, slipping the points that are needed. I just can't wait to find a young person, show me, listen, I need to put this video in here. I need to show this, because why believe me? But then again, Adventists are not believing anybody. I spoke about ethane oxide that's in the tests they give you, antigen or PCR tests, what they put up your nose. And the church, guys would look at it, but they're cowards. They ain't gonna snap in church and say, guys, we're putting this thing up to go to our jobs every day. We push it up our nose and we're gonna get cancer, or we could get cancer. This thing is carcinogenic. The government knows what it's doing. As I said yesterday, that the mask is the same thing. Maybe some are all right, but some of these masks they're putting out there, they got things in there that you put on there and you wear them all day. And obviously it's not good to have a mask on all day anyway. And it's just a con. The mask is the next con that we've been believing in. So the children, you've got kids, I've got kids. We need to stand up in the church setting. we need to talk about the children and say, look, Pastor, this thing's affecting our children. If you ain't going to stand up, we ain't giving that money. That 6 million that you sent to the Trans-European Division, they ain't going to get the money neither, because you guys are weak. So the money, just like what they did in the 70s when the blacks came over and they refused to give the tithe money, you need to start thinking about putting that money in the bank and telling the pastor, if you ain't talking up about these exemptions, what I got, I can't give it to you. I'm saying you need to be serious. Your children are going to be maimed. We're all getting older. For guys like myself or you know, you're coming up to your 60s, you're getting there. You're soon dead. Me, I look at it that, well, in another, 14 years or whatever, I'll be, 70, if life shall prolong. So I know that by the time my granddaughter grows up, I'm finished. You know, maybe weak, maybe one of them weak 70-year-olds not doing the gym or nothing. But we need to think what we're doing, and we need to think with our feet and keep up with the footmen, because when the horsemen start to run under the climate bill, because remember this, they've hoaxed us. And I'm not telling you that there's not a virus, there's not a bioweapon out there. There is something that they've put in there, and it's actually in the vaccines. That's where it lies, in the vaccines, because before the vaccines, you know, they had to pay the hospitals X amount of money to say it was a COVID death, give them incentives. Now they're not paying no incentives. They're paying incentives for you to get jabbed, give you a pizza, give you this. In America, in the prisons, they give the prisoners a joint, or a woman can come in, they can get some sex. It's going on, lottery tickets. Now you tell me if this is fair. So I'm saying to you, you need to vote with your feet. You need to get up and say something in your church. Just like me, I'm waiting till next Sabbath. I've told the pastor about the ethylene oxide. I don't believe personally he's going to get up and say anything. And I'm not going to say nothing when I get there next week, because there's another worker there from the SEC. I'm going to tell him. And on the next week he doesn't say anything and the pastor doesn't say nothing, I'm going to say, excuse me, pastor, I'm not being rude, and I don't want to offend the congregation in any way, because obviously the congregation are pro-pastors. Pro-pastors, you know, the pastor can do no wrong. So they'll say it's about forgiveness, and you know, you're bashing the pastor and his family. No, I'm not bashing the pastor, but I'm going to get up there the following week and say, I don't even think I'm going to even tell them that I informed the pastor or the SEC worker. I'm just going to say straight, look guys, within these packaging that the government's giving from the National Health Service, they've got ethylene oxide in there. And if you're pushing up your nose for a test every day or every month, you can be causing yourself some serious damage. So you need to be really thinking what you're doing. Spit on it. You know, if you have to spit on it, but do not push that up your nose, because it's been sterilized ethylene oxide. The ethylene oxide is on there. Now, the government has to tell you what's there. Just like, you know, you see, I said, Henry Kissinger, he talks about the sheep. You know, get the herd. Once you get the herd, we can have their children and we can all make money. And there's a politician in Australia, he talks about the sheep. He says it straight, you know, we got the sheep and, you know, they're going through the pen. And all these politicians are making money. They're all liars. And as I said yesterday, that the drug, I think it's called Mazaline, that Matt Hancock bought, and they use that under what they call the first wave, where it's about granny. 2 weeks to flatten the curve, it's about granny. It wasn't about granny, it was about getting the people into a state of fear. And the church people are in a state of fear. What are you frightened for? You know, don't get me wrong. There's a virus out there. You got to protect yourself. You got to be, you know, careful what you're doing. You don't just go up there presumptuously and say, yeah, you know what? Just like when Satan took Jesus in his arms, and he says to him, you know, the Bible says this, and he says, you know, thou mustn't tempt the Lord. We don't go out and tempt the Lord, but we work intelligently. We know that this thing that's happening around us is the biggest hoax. Revelation 13:3, part B, 86, 89. It's telling us. We saw September 9/11. That was one of the biggest hoax out there. September 9/11, Revelation 9/11, Testimony 9/11 was telling us that this thing was going down. Under the third woe, and biblical research centers will tell you, we don't know nothing about the third woe. They have no understanding. And if you don't understand the first woe, how are you going to understand the second woe? So if you don't understand the first and the second woe, how are you going to understand the third woe when it's the combination of these things? Come on. You don't understand the sixth trumpet, the seventh trumpet. How are you going to understand? You don't understand the fifth and sixth trumpet. How are you going to understand the seventh trumpet? We need to get back into these books, beat them out, find out the important instructions, what God has there for us. There's a lot of things happening, and we cannot remain silent and just keep ourselves quiet and say it's going to be all right on Saturday night. It's not going to be all right. The government wants there to be, the people are going to find out that their children have been maimed. And what's going to happen is the people are going to come out and they're going to be mad. And when they become mad, and this is what Great Controversy is telling us, right, about these scenes. When the people become mad, martial law. Martial law. And when martial law comes, this is what they want, martial law. As soon as they're locked down everywhere, and they're building prison camps. We used to hear about FEMA in America. They were building all these camps for the Americans in the early, late 90s, so on. They're building them now all over the world, Australia, England, everywhere. They're building loads of morgues for the people who are being vaccinated. And as I said, they're using the advocate method, wherein, the killer shots, there is 100 shots. 15 of them, 25 of them may have the killer shot in there. Some of them will have things where you're gonna get a blindness. You're gonna be like a woman that she's bleeding. I know people. 8-year-old woman, my mum's friend. She's bleeding. My friend up the road, not my friend, my friend in Watford. He understood these things. He took the jab. He said to me that his wife is bleeding every 2 weeks. He can't use his hands because the psoriasis that he has mash up his hands. He said when he wakes up in the morning, he has to wait 2 hours before he can kind of use his hand. He can't even hold a cup. He had to fly to India, to Goa. He said only the warmth does him well. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? We need to do something in our own little spheres. As God says, be ye perfect in your sphere. Right? As the Father in heaven is perfect, we need to be perfect in our sphere. And to be silent is basically to say, yes, we can't say nothing about the guys who are out there who are promoting the vaccine. They're doing something for the kingdom of darkness. They're out there, the pastors are promoting, and it's a lot of the European pastors who are locking down the churches and wanting the black people to get vaccinated. And a lot of us wouldn't get vaccinated before because we knew what happened around the world from slavery to Tuskegee. We understood what the CDC was about. We understand that the World Health Organization, the CDC, the NIH, all of these bodies are being paid for by the merchantmen of Revelation 18. This is clear. We understand that the Sunday law is coming, but it's coming under the climate bill. And who's pushing it? We're not meant to say the name, the Pope of Rome, the same body that we gave 70% of our hospitals to. He's pushing the bill. And ministers are saying they want to jump on this. See, COP21. It's like when Floyd died. Loads of those white ministers in England, they were practicing the racist policies. They came out pre-2019 when the letter was sent out, and look, it wasn't sent out to the general church member, but there's some pastors. They said, "Listen, man, I need to leak this," and they leak it, and you read it, and you see what's going on within the TED, and you say, "Listen, wow, all these years, and these guys never said nothing." COP21 come, and everybody wants to be popular. They're trying to jump on it. Floyd George died before these ministers never said anything about the racism that was going on. They're writing all these things about racism, and then they said, "We're sorry." Sorry about what? You're not sorry because Moderna, Pfizer, they practice the same policies, racist policies that they only used to maim blacks, Indians, and etc. And when their sorry was, "We made 10 billion and we're going to give you back £2 million. Come on. Wake up. Smell the coffee. Your children, like my children, they're in trouble. My son, he wants to go work. Boy, if you don't have a vaccine, you can't go. This is where it's coming. And the church is telling you, oh, it's about choice. There is no choice. The only choice is for the wicked right now. The wicked got choice. Because they're taking it because they know they're going to end up after 1,000 years with their maker. So stand up. Get some videos out. Don't be just sitting in the church there waiting for pastor to tell you. Pastor is part of the problem. Pastor leadership is part of the problem. And the evidence is out there. I'm not against the church. I'm not against the church saying, you got to do the antigen test or the PCR because obviously if we're not doing this in our church, I'm not against the church. Church has to do that. I'm going to hospital right now. My eyes is killing me, right? I'm going to hospital and they're going to ask me to I go to this eye hospital. They want to ram that thing. I'm going to tell them, no, I can't do that, man. And tell them straight, I can't do that, right? I'll have to go to one. I'm going to go to one in Moorfields. I'm going to pop down to the one. If they're not letting me get in Moorfields Hospital for my eye, I'm going to go down to St. George's because I know I don't have to do it at St. George's. It'll cost me some more money, cost me some more time, and I don't want to necessarily go. I live at a suburban. Obviously, it's not too far to get to Moorfields, but then I'm going to go all the way to South London, and I can't drive. I don't think I could drive with my eye at the moment. But what are we doing? You've got to stand up. You've got to be a voice within your church. I used to run with a little group in so-called Present Truth. And we were always talking. And don't get me wrong, there was a little teeth in the camp. And obviously God wasn't going to bless. And a lot of people, even today, don't realize why we could never do nothing. We could never get out there and do nothing. The teeth was in camp. Acon was there. So we could do nothing. And God wasn't. We were blessed, but the blessings of getting that and some of the truths that we had never got it out. Even today, I watch a lot of these guys. They talk. I'm looking at them thinking, you're doing nothing, and you got a posse, and they're doing nothing. In church, there's loads of people doing nothing. And why people not coming to the church is simple. My friend rings me up. Sean, well, I come in the church, but your man them not say nothing. The vaccine they out and all these things, them are going and man them not say nothing. I say, yeah, T, it's true. I said, not even really me, I used to be talking about Daniel Revelation. I'm not really saying much myself, really. I'm dead. And I said, yeah, the pastors, they went on furlough. What time to go on furlough? And then you want another holiday. You've had nearly 6 months, a year off. Then you want your holiday after. They're just there for the money. Not all. The majority of them are just there for the money. They're just hirelings. They don't care about the flock. I see pastors all the time in this area that I live in. It's pastor land. Watford is a little bit expensive, so they come out to this part where I'm living, and you see them all the time. They do nothing. They do nothing. Now, catch this before I close. Most pastors are like the pastors that jumped on when Floyd George died. They've got something to say. So most pastors, I've seen them, like there's some great pastors that they can preach. There's one particular one that's in my mind. I'm not going to call his name. I really like him. I like his preaching style, and he can preach, and he preaches with sense. And I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, wow, man, this guy can preach. And he talked about something dissidence. You know, what's happening to us. We're like there's a word for it. Like the vaccine's happening, you're saying nothing. So he preached this sermon, and I spread this sermon. It wasn't on prophecy or nothing like that. Now, this same pastor, all he preaches on is women's issues. Husband beat up wife. I went to a church in Reading, and I saw him. I'm thinking, well, I ain't getting no prophetic sermon, but this guy's always got some good material. It's all right. I'm going to get something. I'm not going to have to. I won't sleep. I won't put my eyes closed. I went to one church, and the guy said to me, he rang me up. He said, "Yeah, we thought you were dopey, man. You come there late. You sit down. You close your eyes, and the pastor said something happened with me where I put something on their site about what's happening, voicing my opinion. The pastor told him that he must get me off the site. So he explains to me that, yeah, we really thought you were this dopey black guy just coming there, sitting there and doing nothing. And then he told us, nah, man, that guy ain't that dopey guy, right? And I said to him, look, don't get yourself involved with me and the pastor. Let the pastor knows me. We worked at the office together. Let the pastor deal with it, right? So obviously the pastor dealt with it himself. And I just told the pastor my views, and that I was not taking down what I put up, and I wasn't recanting, and I can defend it from this point, that point. And yeah, it was cool. But going back to this pastor, I said that he just preaches about issues, and he's with fire and vengeance in his face. Is angry. This thing has to stop. Men abusing women. I'm thinking, look, you come up to Reading. If I brought a visitor there, I would have thought to myself, look, man, nah, I can't get involved in that. My visitor being there, he comes for word from the Lord. He said, Sean, all I heard is about nothing to do with God. It's to do with God, but it's just something that you've got a different forum, a different track to talk about these things. You know, the Me Too movement has become so big. And I'm not saying some of these things aren't happening, because obviously it's been happening from time from memorial. Slavery, we saw that many people, the women were raped constantly. The men had to sleep with their mums. And we see in certain communities that certain things happen. And we know that there's a certain particular person at 55, and they just, in their bloodline, I don't know what it is or where their family grew up, but they're pedophiles. My cousin's a police officer, and he told me the profile of white Englishmen about 55. They wear brown shoes. He told me a lot of stuff. He says that these men are general pedophiles, right? And obviously, I don't know if it's in the DNA, the gene, or is it a behavior like racism? I know that racism is learned. You know, your mum and dad tell you, look, the Chinese over there, they're no good. Or the blacks, he's no good. Which West Indians don't do that. Well, even Africans don't do that. We might have our internal squabbles, maybe about the color of our skin or whatever, but we don't tell our kids or whatever that when I grew up, I never knew that. You know, to hate the white man. You know, I didn't know that. But the pastors are getting into everything, but they're not getting into what suits the church. Now, I'm going to have to close now. I hear the front door opening. and I hear the wife coming, and I know that she doesn't want to be on the video, so I'm going to cut. But we will talk another time, and may the Lord bless you and keep you.